so back again with another Cardfight Vanguard deck profile. So hope you guys enjoy. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and donate to the Patreon. So let's get started. This time, it's my Murakumo budget deck profile. Now, I'm going to say, this is technically a Zanbaku deck, but technically it is not. I'm going to say Zanbaku a lot during this video, and I'm going to call it a Zanbaku deck. It is not a Zanbaku deck, so if I keep saying it and someone wants to call me out for it, you can. But it's a natural twitch I do, so I'm always going to call it Zanbaku no matter how my brain thinks it actually should be called. So, let's get this started. First up, the starter is the Stealth Dragon Adverse Spike. The standard when wrote upon, draw a card, and then if your opponent's Vanguard is greater, one or greater, get a quick shield. And, you know, the draw card is always useful because it can technically be a top deck. I have actually top decked from that part of the skill a lot. And, you know, getting a quick shield, a 5k shield that you are mainly going to discard for discard effects, or just a 5k shield in general, can be really useful for guarding early, especially when you're playing against Blouse. Because if I've learned one thing from playing against Blouse, or from what I've noticed from playing against people who use Blouse, or maybe it's just me personally, I've seen that it's best to guard early on, especially if they run Fusing Striker. Because trust me, that card is a pain in the ass to deal with. I should know. I have lost plenty of games thanks to it. Anyways, this starter could be any one of them. It can be Cat Devil. It can be Mosaga, whatever the thing is that kind of looks like a Jiraiya from Naruto. I just chose this one because it works best with the deck, considering that the grade 3s are dual dragons. Granted, you could also just pick Cat Devil for the sake of considering all the grade 2s and some of the grade 1s are furries. It's really up to you. On to the triggers. We've got 3 draw triggers, so 3 Cat, Rogue, and 3 Everwing. These could be whatever you want. This is the budget deck, so we don't run the draw PG. If you can find the draw PG, put it in. I would still suggest running 6 draws, but put the draw PG in, and just do that, because the draw PG is honestly better than the PG that we currently have. And then we got 6 fronts, 3 Panthers, 3 Koichis. I have tested this deck out myself. This deck is actually really good, so I would suggest using it if you're curious. So on to the heal trigger, which is Stealth Fiend Yukihime. Once more, could be either this or Bamboo Fox. I choose Yukihime because unlike my friends, I'm not a pervert who likes just looking at random cards. So anyways, now on to grade 1s. We've got 1 copy of Stealth Dragon Amatsu Snipe. Continuous rearguard or Vanguard Circle. If a rearguard is placed from your deck during this turn, this unit gets +5, 10k shield, and 7k base. So that's really good. I know how continuous works, so where even if this thing isn't on the field, if you call something, because the continuous is active for the whole turn, if you called something before you called this, if the thing was called from the deck, it still gets the power, or at least to my knowledge that happens, because I've heard it from somewhere and then I just kept doing it. So, you know, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but if I'm right, I'm right. So anyways, it's a nice 12k booster, or 12k attacker. It can hit excel numbers, it can hit protect numbers, it can't hit force numbers because of that stupid 1k addition that fucks over a lot of decks. But, you know, that's really good. If you're asking why there's only 1 copy, it's only, well, 1, it's because it's not an arrestor, but 2, it is not the best, but it's not the worst. It can be used as a 12k, and that's pretty much it. So, you know, if you see him, and I suggest calling it. But otherwise, he's not really here for anything else. So 1 copy. 4 copies of our regular PG. Stealth Fiend, Kiri Fubuki. So continuous, it's a sentinel, so you can only have 4 on the deck. Auto Guardian Circle, I don't know why I call this thing a G-Guard. When plays, discard a card, and then one of your units cannot be hit till end of battle, so that's really good, basically just a PG. And then the ability that makes it good if you have to write it. Auto Vanguard Circle, when plays, draw a card and discard a card. So, you know, classic ride, draw one from the starter, get a quick shield, and then skill this thing, draw, and then discards a quick shield. So, you know, really good. It is the only card in this deck that I, to memory, discards. There's probably others in this deck that discard. But still good into 7k base, so it's not the worst thing to ride into. I've seen my friend that I built this for call it. I wouldn't call it personally, unless you're just trying to rush them. Then again, it did end up saving him, so you know what? It could work. So 4 copies. 4 copies of Jamming Impeder, the card that is only useful for 1 turn and then is immediately useless. Auto Rearguard Circle, at the end of the battle that it boosted a Vanguard, so blast 1 and look at top 5 cards of your deck, reveal it to 1 right arrestor or left arrestor from among them, put them to your hand and shuffle your deck. So 8k base and 10k shield. So that's really useful. Despite the fact that it only works if it boosted a Vanguard, it can still get you a left arrestor and a right arrestor. So you may be wondering, well, if it's only useful for 1 turn, why the fuck is there 4 copies? Here's why. Because right arrestor and left arrestor are so important to the deck that you kind of need this. Also, this deck is built in preparation to where when Zanbaku gets cheap enough to buy it, all you have to do is just swap around a few cards and the numbers will be correct. So this is why it was built like this. So these cards are kind of in preparation for the Zanbaku build itself, but either way, it's still good. It can help you search left arrestor and right arrestor, which are actually important cards to this deck. Mainly left arrestor, right arrestor is okay. It still has importance, just not as much as left arrestor does, but that's still good. And this deck doesn't really have a solo problem, so Searcher, 4 copies. Now, 4 copies of a card that deserves to be in this deck at 4 copies regardless. Backward arrestor, 8k base, 10k shield, auto rearguard circle when it boosts a right or left arrestor. If you have a Vanguard with Dueling Dragon in its card name, so charge 1, and the boosted unit gets plus 10 till end of turn. So that's really, end to end of battle. That's actually really good, because 1, that automatically makes the attack a 27k attacker, and if you're using left arrestor's skill, it becomes 32, which means it hits, either way, it still hits magic numbers for it to excel in a protect deck, but still. And it gets you a free soul, so you could boost this with left arrestor, go for 17, then use backward arrestor skill, soul charge 1, and then left arrestor gets plus 10, and then use left arrestor skill to soul blast that soul charge, and it gets plus 5. So it's just basically a free number, and that your opponent has to deal with, and this is why this deck can rush so well. And what's even better is this card is an arrestor, and there is a card that's superior calls him from deck. So this card is really good and is at 4 copies for good reasons. On to grade 2s. So now this is in this version, in the budget version, this card holds the least importance. If you have anything to throw away, this is what you throw away for discard cost, because this is the least important card in the deck. Mainly because it's a vanilla. And I'm still going to read its skill, but it's mainly a vanilla here. So, right arrestor, 4 copies, 9k base, 5k shield. Auto rearguard circle when placed if your Vanguard is Dueling Dragon Zanbaku. Hint, hint, he's not in this deck, so there's no point in continuing, but I'm going to do it anyways. And you have another, the A button cut out. And if you have another rearguard with the arrestor in its card name, counterblast 2 and put a card from your hand into soul, choose one of your opponent's Vanguards, and that unit cannot stand on your opponent's next standby phase. So, that's never going to happen in this deck. There is no Dueling Dragon Zanbaku here. This card is a vanilla. The only reason why it's here is because it supports one of the grade 2s. One supports another grade 2. There are 2 grade 1s that support it, and then both of the grade 3s support it. So this card on its own is a vanilla, but literally everything else in the deck, and in fact the only things you ever call to the field or ride, support this thing so much to where this thing actually has use outside of its non-existent skill. So he's still useful, but if you have something to throw away for like PG cost or discard cost and you don't want to throw away the quick shield for whatever reason, get rid of this. But value this more than the quick shield if you have a choice, because this thing this thing matters to cards, but otherwise get rid of this because it's not that good in this deck anyways. And then now we got 4 copies of a left arrestor. Auto rearguard circle when it attacks a Vanguard. If you have another rearguard arrestor in its card name, Soul Blast 1, it gets plus 5k power to end of battle. So immediate 14k attacker. If boosted by backward, it becomes a 32k attacker if you use its skill. So that thing's very dangerous already. It's already just swinging for big numbers. But if you make 2 columns of left arrestor and backward arrestor, your opponent is not going to have a really fun time, especially if there are 5 damage, because that's a 482 attack right there. That is a guaranteed 35k, no it's not. It's a guaranteed 30k guard regardless, but if they're not playing force, then it's a 35k guard, which is all the better, because that 5k could just screw them over. So, really nice. 4 copies. 4 copies of the grade 2 that is supported by right arrestor. Central arrestor. So 9k base, 5k shield, continuous rearguard circle. If it's in the back row, middle column, so it has to be directly behind your Vanguard. If it is not, it is a vanilla. That's all I have to say about it. If it's not in the back row center, you're an idiot, and it's a vanilla. Because for some reason you chose to put it somewhere else. Anyways, let me finish the skill before I call you an idiot more for doing that. This unit can attack from the back row, and if you have a Vanguard Dueling Dragon in its card name, this unit gets plus 5k for each of your units with the rest in their card name. So it's already a guaranteed back row attacker, which is great because it can do rushing power. So you can get like 4 attacks while you're at grade 2, and that's just amazing already. And then this unit gets plus 5 for each of your arrestors if you have a Dueling Dragon Vanguard. All your grade 3s are Dueling Dragons. I'm saying this right now. If you get to grade 3, this thing's effects are going off regardless. But that's really good. And since you have so many arrestors, I believe there is 1, 2. There's 2 in. Okay, there are 3 arresters, not counting this one, so 4 arresters. If you call another one of this, then you got 4 arresters right there, and that just gives a plus 20. But not only that, it doesn't. It just says each other arrester in their card name. It doesn't have to be different. So you could have like 2 left arresters, 1 right arrestor, 2 backwards arrestor, and then this thing on the field, and you can immediately give this thing plus 20 if I'm doing the math correct. No, plus 25, and that's just amazing because that's just a huge thing. Unfortunately, if it's not in the back center, I don't think it gains the power. But even then, still an amazing card. 4 copies. If you call this to a rearguard circle that isn't the back center, I will slap you. I will if I see it go up in public, I will personally find you and I will backhand your ass for doing this. Because you do not deserve to not be backhand. Now, if there's another one in the back row and you just want to call this one for attacking, then that's a different story. But if you don't call it to the back row when there's not one in the back row, you're an idiot. Anyways, on to the grade 3s. 4 copies of the newest addition to the deck, Dueling Dragon Zantetsu. I call it Zantetsu. I'm not even sure that's how you pronounce it. But also, Backward Arrestor is a new arrestor. Is a new card too, so. Anyways, Continuous Vanguard Circle. During your turn, all of your units with arrestor in their card name get plus 5k. Amazing. Right there. That is beautiful. Because that means that Central Arrestor right there, that's a 30k plus on the first grade 3 turn. That's fucking amazing. Plus 30k? That thing's a 39k attacker without the support of triggers or anything. Amazing. And then your other arrestors, so that brings left arrestor columns to 47 if boosted by backward and use both their skills. And then that right arrestor to 24, which doesn't really matter. But still, that's a lot of power. And Excel decks normally die to triggers. This is going to make it really difficult for them to stop it. I should know. I beat the shit out of my opponent when they're at grade 2. First grade 3 turn. Almost won. If they didn't have 3 PGs, they would have died that turn. That's all I'm saying. Anyways, and then the second skill, active Vanguard or Rear Guard, once per turn. If you have a Vanguard Dueling Dragon in its card name, this can count, and obviously, put the top card of your deck into the damage zone without doing damage checks, and search your deck for up to 2 cards with the rest in their card names, call them the Rear Guard, and shuffle your deck. So you're allowed to call 2 of the same card if I'm correct, so you're allowed to call 2 left arrestors, 2 backward arrestors, etc. Normally, I always call a guaranteed central arrestor. If I don't have one in my hand, I will guaranteedly call one. And then it debates on that. Like, if I have a left arrestor in my hand, I'll call backward down. If I have a backward, I'll most likely call left, etc. It just depends on things. But that's a good ability, because it activates on Vanguard or Rear Guard. There's a very certain card that can plus off of this. This is always your first ride, and it's always just a good first ride, because, the first turn, you just get power stack, and you try to wipe out as much guarding power as possible for your opponent, or at least that's how I play it. You try to wipe out as much guarding power as possible, then the next grade 3 turn, you ride to your next grade 3, and then you get another Excel gift, you call second Zantetsu, use its skill to plus off the other grade 3, and then you just beat the shit out of your opponent from there. But either way, really good, 4 copies. On to the main grade 3. Dueling Dragon Dueling Dragon King Zangeki. So continuous Vanguard Circle. If you have a left arrestor in your front row, this unit gets plus 5k power, and if you have a right arrestor in your front row, it gets plus 1 crit. Now notice, it doesn't say during your turn. That's not a misprint. It is genuinely a 17k base with 2 crits during both players' turns. So that automatically makes it harder for Protect and Excel decks to hit. Force could already do this, it just makes it slightly harder for them to hit, not that much. Granted, it does the same thing for Protect and Excel, but still. But that's really good. So it's a 17k attacker at all times, and a plus 1 crit, so that makes it easier for you to defend. And this is already a guaranteed Vanguard block no matter what, unless they just want to die if they're at 4 damage. But then the other skill, which is why you want to ride Zantetsu first. Continuous Vanguard Circle. If your soul has a card with Dueling Dragon in its card name, your opponent can only call grade 0s to guard circle. That is amazing. Because, say so Zantetsu, like I said, you ride Zantetsu first, and then you rush. You don't have to ride Zantetsu first, it is suggested, so that one of Zangeki's skills isn't wasted, because you kind of need to have it at all times afterwards. But still, if you have that grade 3 in soul, that makes it so that they have to block with grade 0s for each of the attacks, not just its own, everything. So you should have 5 circles right now, 2 from the Axos, or on average when you first use it. You should have 2 on Axo, 2 in front row, and then itself. So that's 1 at 17 2 crits already. Assumably that the back center is a central arrestor, that is 6 effing attacks. And your opponent has to guard with grade 0s for all of them. And protectives too. But if they don't, then the attack goes through. That's just unless it wouldn't go through to begin with, but still, that's amazing. 4 copies, beautiful card, art looks cool as hell, and it's just all around very powerful and very scary to deal with once its abilities get activated. And now you got the gifts. I suggest, if you want to save money and you want to be smart, I suggest you buy like 4 of each one, or you can buy like the 4 copies of the double-sided one. And the only reason why I say this is because I have seen the deck in action multiple times, I've used it multiple times, and it's never had the chance to go past 4 rides. I've only ridden 3 times with this deck, and I've only seen my friend do it twice. So 4 is a good number, just in case, but just go 1 over, but otherwise I would only get 4. You're not going to ride that many times. This deck already has enough rushing power as is. But anyways, what the gifts do, if you don't already know what they do, for Exile 1, when it's placed, it becomes a new front or rear guard, and the unit on it gets plus 10 during your turn, so standard plus 10, so really good. And then Exile 2, when placed, you draw a card, and then it gets plus 5 during your turn. So whatever unit is on it gets half the power, but you get a free draw out of it. This is mostly what you're going to use because you want to get hand cards. Granted, Zentetsu is your toolbox here, and it can literally just call any arrestor, and that's what you're going to pump out your field with. But you still want to have extra cards, and just in case you don't draw into Zentetsu normally, you could just get the Excel 2 and hopefully draw into it from there. But still, I only suggest 4. You're not going to use it otherwise. Zengeki is the boss here. Zentetsu is still a really good card and is a guaranteed. I promise you, if you first ride Zentetsu, you will have a better time with this. And by the way, you're allowed to use this multiple times. I've seen people do it multiple times. Me personally, I don't like doing this multiple times, using Zentetsu's skill multiple times in the same turn, because you don't heal from it. So, if I would suggest only doing it once, like it says once per turn, because if you have multiple copies, you can do it multiple times. But I suggest only doing it once. To me, it's kind of scary, because I've seen someone do it where they push themselves to 5, and it's not something they do randomly. They genuinely will do it, and it bothers me personally. It's not a way I would play unless I'm that damn desperate, but there's no way that they're that desperate so many times. But either way, really good deck. If you want to try it out, it's only $28, I want to say? No, it's less than $28, I know it is. It's like $26 if you buy it all from TCG Player, and not counting the gifts. But still, really good deck. It's fun to play. It's amazing. You will never have problems with this, besides maybe being grade locked every now and then, with obvious luck being involved. But still, if you ever get to grade 3, your opponent's dead. There's nothing they can do about it. They'll just have to watch you slowly kill them. Or fastly kill them, just depends on what you have. Either way, that was the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and donate to the Patreon. I'll see you on the next one. Don't forget to stand up your vanguard. That